When forever runs out, the untold story of James and Cheryl Pate. I want to start with something most true crime channels will never tell you. The most dangerous moment in an abusive relationship is not the middle. It is not the worst night, the worst fight, the night someone ends up in the ER. The most dangerous moment is the moment someone tries to leave. Researchers at the Centers for Disease Control have documented this for decades. The National Domestic Violence Hotline confirms it. Study after study from Oxford, Johns Hopkins, the University of Maryland, they all point to the same conclusion. 75% of homicides related to domestic violence occur after separation begins. 75%, 3 in 4, not during the relationship, after someone starts trying to get out. Now, I want you to hold that number in your head like a stone in your fist, because we're going to build a story around it. A story that happened in a driveway in Pekin, Illinois on a sunny Tuesday afternoon. A story involving two elderly people, a woman of 80 and a man of 93, who most of the media covered as a curious footnote. A bizarre anomaly, a darkly comic headline. This story is none of those things. This story is the oldest story in the book. It just wore different wrapping paper. Subscribe right now and hit the bell. We cover cases that the algorithm buries because they're complicated. This one belongs in a master class. Let's go. Pekin, Illinois. Population approximately 32,000. Tazewell County, Central Illinois, sitting on the eastern bank of the Illinois River, about 10 miles south of Peoria. It is the kind of American small city that has a country club, a hospital league, a volunteer culture, and a civic pride that people who have never lived in small city America fundamentally misunderstand. This is not a backwater. This is a place where community is not a hashtag, it is infrastructure. Where a woman who makes Christmas cookies for the whole neighborhood is not performing warmth. She genuinely is the neighborhood. And in that city, for a number of years, lived James E. Pate and Cheryl Ann Pate, née Liming, at 22 Cypress Point. A residential property that Tazewell County real estate records confirm was situated near the Pekin Country Club, the social epicenter of the city's civic life. Here comes the numbers that frame everything. James E. Pate was born in 1932 and was 93 years old at time of arrest. Cheryl Ann Pate, née Liming, was born on November 23, 1944, Bartonville, Illinois. Age at death, 80. Age gap between them, approximately 13 years, James significantly the elder. Home at 22 Cypress Point sold, August 22, 2025, for $355,000. Buyer of the property, Pekin Country Club Residential LLC. Days between home sale and Cheryl's death, 11 days. Date of the killing, September 2, 2025, Tuesday afternoon. Location of the killing, 1800 block of South 14th Street, a long private driveway, approximately 5 miles from the sold home. Weapon, knife retrieved from the center console of the vehicle James was driving. Cause of death, coroner's ruling. Multiple sharp force injuries of the neck, incompatible with life, unsurvivable. Charges filed, 2 Class M felony counts of first-degree murder, maximum sentence, 60 years. James's date of death in custody, October 6, 2025, 34 days after the killing. Cause of James's death, Legionnaires' disease, contracted from Tazewell County Jail's internal water system. These are not just facts. These are the skeleton of a story. And the story, the real story, lives in the connective tissue between these numbers. Let's start with the one that almost nobody has examined. 11 days. 11 days before Cheryl Pate was murdered, she co-signed the sale of her home for $355,000. Think about what that means materially. When you sell your primary residence in a marriage dissolution process, before the divorce has even been filed, you are executing the single most consequential financial act of separation. You are liquidating the shared physical space. You are transforming a home into a number on a check. You are, functionally, signing the end of a life chapter into legal reality. Cheryl signed that paper. James signed that paper. And somewhere in the space between that ink drying and the afternoon of September 2nd, whatever was holding the dam broke. Pause here and think about this. If the house was already sold 11 days before, where were they going when this happened? They had no home to return to. They were, in the most literal sense, in transit between two lives. And one of them had a knife in the center console. Comment what you think that means. At this point, let's talk about Cheryl, the woman the headlines buried. Here is the way most news coverage framed this story. 93-year-old man kills 80-year-old wife. And then, invariably, the story became about him. His age, his audacity, the bizarre novelty of a nonagenarian in a mugshot. Cheryl became a footnote in her own death. Let me do something radical and tell you who she actually was. Cheryl Ann Liming was born on November 23, 1944 in Bartonville, Illinois, a working-class suburb adjacent to Peoria, to Marjorie Hartman and Earl Liming. She was born into the waning years of World War I, in a nation reconfiguring itself around the returning GI generation. She was, from the beginning, a product of a Midwest that valued hard work, community obligation, and endurance. She built a career as a call center manager. Her family specifically noted that she rose through corporate ranks at a time when it was, their words, especially challenging for women to earn respect. This is language with a very specific meaning. It means she navigated a professional world that actively minimized her, and she prevailed anyway. She had 2 children, Dr. Tiffany Carras, a physician, and Brandon Thies. Note the surnames. They are Carras and Thies, not Pate. This is a piece of the biographical record that tells us Cheryl had a complete life before James, a prior relationship or marriage, adult children with established professional and family lives of their own, a matrilineal identity that existed independent of her marriage to James. She had 4 grandchildren and 2 additional step-grandchildren she embraced fully: Olivia, Marin, Madeline, Audrey, Alex, and Andrew. Her obituary describes her at the center of a gravitational field of children, their swim meets, their choir concerts, their theater performances, their sleepovers at Grandma Cherie's house that became family lore. She had a group of women friends who had been her chosen family for more than 50 years. 50 years. That is a depth of sorority almost impossible to overstate. These were women who had known her through everything, every marriage, every heartbreak, every triumph, every Tuesday. She was stubborn, resilient, and brave. Those are not the words you choose for someone who was passive. Those are the words you choose for someone who fought, someone who pushed back, someone who, when life asked her to sit down, stood up instead. She gardened. She made jewelry. She directed an annual gift show. She was director of her hospital league's floral arrangements and was, by all accounts, spectacularly talented at it. She dressed a table so beautifully that her family described it as art. She kept Christmas cookies flowing to what sounds like half of Pekin every December. She loved the beach. She got irretrievably lost everywhere she drove. Her family put it in the obituary, which means it was affectionately funny, the kind of flaw that becomes endearing when you love someone. She was alive. She was socially, creatively, communally alive at 80 years old. And she was leaving. That is the sentence that changes everything. What was actually happening is a case of gray divorce. Gray divorce is the clinical term for the dramatically rising trend of divorce among adults over 50. According to Pew Research Center data, while the overall U.S. divorce rate has declined, the rate for adults over 50 has roughly doubled since 1990. For adults over 65, it has tripled. We don't have the precise date of James and Cheryl's marriage from public records. What we can say with confidence, from the combination of the children's surnames, Carras and Thies, not Pate, and the absence of any mention of a shared family origin in the obituary, is that Cheryl almost certainly had a prior life and possibly a prior marriage before James. What we know for absolute certain is what James himself told detectives. They were planning to file for divorce. He used that exact language. It was not ambiguous. It was not metaphorical. The marriage was in active legal dissolution. They had sold the house. They were preparing the paperwork. Cheryl, at 80, had decided that whatever years she had left, she was not going to spend them in this marriage. James, at 93 or 94, was confronting the terminal arithmetic of that decision. A 93-year-old man facing divorce has, statistically, the fewest future years of anyone in this equation. He was not going to rebuild. He was not going to start over. He was not going to find a new chapter. His chapter, in the most brutally clinical terms, was closing, and Cheryl was the one doing the closing. I need you to share this video right now because what comes next is the part no one has reported properly. The forensic timeline of the last day, the car, and the knife. Share it before you keep watching. Now, why were they still in the same car? This is the question every person who reads about this case instinctively asks, even if they don't articulate it consciously. If the marriage was already dying, if the house was sold, and divorce papers were being prepared, why were Cheryl and James still riding in the same car together? It seems almost incomprehensible in the context of what we know. And yet, there is a completely rational explanation, one that is almost never discussed in coverage of this case. When two people dissolve a decades-long joint life, the administrative obligation does not dissolve with the relationship. If anything, it multiplies. There are attorneys to meet, financial advisors to consult, real estate closings to attend. They had just completed one 11 days prior, moving logistics to navigate, personal property to inventory and divide, medical paperwork, financial accounts, insurance policies, subscription cancellations, address changes. In elderly couples, one additional factor frequently applies: shared logistics. At 93, James was still driving. The court records established this. He was behind the wheel when the argument occurred. At 80, Cheryl may well have been dependent on their shared transportation infrastructure for routine errands and appointments, particularly in a smaller city like Pekin, where public transit is limited and driving distances significant. They were, in all likelihood, conducting the business of ending their marriage, together, in the same car, because that is the grimly ironic reality of late-life separation. You cannot simply stop inhabiting each other's logistical existence overnight. You are woven into each other's practical lives even when you have emotionally and legally decided to separate. The 1800 block of South 14th Street is approximately 5 miles from their former address at 22 Cypress Point. It is a private driveway associated with a residence. They were not driving aimlessly. They were somewhere doing something, as part of the ongoing administration of a life that was in the process of being surgically divided. And then the argument started, and James parked the car. So here is a forensic psychology analysis of the vehicle as a weapon. Forensic psychologists and intimate partner violence researchers have documented a specific phenomenon: the vehicle as a control space. A car, particularly when moving or parked in an isolated location, creates a closed system in which 1. The victim cannot easily exit. Particularly true in an elderly context where mobility may be limited, or where stopping in traffic or an unfamiliar area creates additional barriers to departure. 2. The perpetrator controls the parameters. He was driving. He decided where to go. He decided when to stop. When James Pate parked that car, a decision the court records specifically note. He parked the car. He made an active, controlling choice to create a fixed, bounded space in which the confrontation would occur. 3. There are no witnesses and no exits. A long private driveway in a residential area on a Tuesday afternoon. No bystanders, no intervention possible, just two people, a car and a knife in the center console. This dynamic, the vehicle as a controlled, sealed environment, appears in intimate partner homicide cases with striking frequency. It is not specific to James and Cheryl Pate. It is a recognized pattern. And this is the piece that makes the premeditation question so unresolvable. Did James consciously park the car knowing what would happen next? Or did the act of parking, followed by Cheryl's alleged lunge toward him, constitute a rapid, reactive sequence that his own body and its accumulated rage executed without the deliberate formulation of a plan? The law does not require extended planning for premeditation. In Illinois, premeditation can be established in seconds. The moment James reached into that center console, bypassing, let us note, every other possible response to being scratched by an 80-year-old woman and drew a knife, he had formed lethal intent. However briefly, however impulsively. That is the legal definition of murder in the first degree. Comment below, do you think the parking was deliberate, or does the fact that she lunged at him change the calculus? There are no wrong answers here, but there are answers that the data supports more strongly than others. Drop your take. Let me walk you through the exact sequence of events as established in the Tazewell County Circuit Court Affidavit of Probable Cause, the primary source document that forms the evidentiary core of this case. Tuesday, September 2, 2025, afternoon, Pekin, Illinois. James Pate is driving a vehicle. Cheryl Pate is in the passenger seat. They are, based on the totality of available evidence, navigating the practical logistics of a marriage in active dissolution. The context of the drive is not established in the affidavit, but the surrounding facts, sold home, pending divorce, provide a clear framework. An argument erupts inside the vehicle. James drives to the 1800 block of South 14th Street. He turns into a long private driveway. He parks the car. The argument escalates. Cheryl, according to James's own account to officers, provided without a lawyer, immediately and apparently without hesitation, which is itself remarkable, lunges toward him as if to scratch his face. Let us be precise about what "as if to scratch" means forensically. It means, by James's own characterization, that she moved toward him in a manner that he interpreted as an attempt to physically scratch him. Not stab, not punch, not attack with a weapon, scratch. As in the physical act a person uses when they are deeply frustrated and have no weapon and are at the end of their patience. James pushes her away, he strikes her. Then, and this is the sequence that carries the entire legal and moral weight of this case, he reaches into the center console of the vehicle and retrieves a knife. He cuts Cheryl Pate's throat. Officers arriving on scene find Cheryl lying on the pavement on the passenger side of the car. She is covered in blood from the neck down. She has a laceration on the front of her neck. She is conscious enough to have been transported, but arrives at OSF St. Francis Medical Center in Peoria with no pulse, not breathing, and unresponsive. Multiple sharp force injuries that were incompatible with life and unsurvivable. She is pronounced dead shortly after arrival. James Pate is standing near the car with a significant amount of blood on him. He tells officers, without prompting, without a lawyer, without any apparent attempt at evasion or deflection, that he has cut his wife's throat. He tells them he threw the knife into the wooded area adjacent to the driveway. Officers search. They find it exactly where he said it was. The knife was not drawn from his pocket. It was not retrieved from a bag or a glove compartment that required extra effort. It was in the center console, the most accessible, most reachable location in any vehicle. The armrest between driver and passenger. Arms reach from where James was sitting. Men of James Pate's generation, born during the Depression, routinely carried utility knives as a matter of practical habit. A pocket knife or car knife was no more remarkable in that cultural context than a multi-tool in a modern glove box. This is a real mitigating contextual fact. But here is what the forensic psychology of weapon accessibility tells us. When a person, in a moment of extreme emotional escalation, reaches for the nearest available weapon and uses it to inflict lethal force on a person who was attempting to scratch them, the availability of that weapon is not incidental. The proximity of the knife to the escalation did not cause the killing, but it enabled the magnitude of the response. A study in the New England Journal of Medicine found that the presence of a firearm in a domestic violence situation increases homicide risk by 500%. The principle extends to any weapon kept within immediate reach. Proximity to a lethal weapon converts a confrontation that might otherwise result in bruises into one that results in a throat cutting. The knife did not decide what happened on September 2, 2025. James Pate decided. The knife was just the technology. Illinois prosecutors filed 2 Class M counts of first-degree murder. Under 720 ILCS 591, Illinois first-degree murder has 3 distinct theories. Count 1, intentional murder. The defendant intended to kill or do great bodily harm. The moment James pulled that knife with the intent to cut Cheryl's throat, this theory was satisfied. Count 2, knowing murder. The defendant knew his acts created a strong probability of death or great bodily harm. Cutting a person's throat with a knife, even without specific intent to kill, satisfies this theory absolutely. No reasonable person believes cutting someone's throat is survivable without lethal intent. 2 counts, dual theories, covering every possible version of what happened in that car. Now, was it premeditated in the deeper, cultural sense? Was this something James planned? Here is what the totality of evidence suggests, assembled in sequence. 1. James had what he himself described as a lot of pent-up anger. This is not the language of someone who snapped spontaneously. This is the language of someone describing a long accumulation. 2. The marriage was in active dissolution. The house was sold. The divorce papers were in preparation. The normal human protective mechanisms, the sense that things might improve, the hope that time would smooth things over, were gone. The dissolution was real, legally real, financially real, physically real. 3. James was the one driving. He controlled the vehicle. He determined when and where to stop. He parked the car in a private driveway, not on a public road, not in a parking lot, not at their destination. A driveway, isolated, enclosed. 4. The knife was accessible. He knew it was there. He did not go looking for it in a moment of confusion. He reached with familiarity. 5. After cutting Cheryl's throat, he threw the knife into the woods. He did not hold on to it. He disposed of it. That is an act of cognitive awareness, of knowing that the knife was evidence and needing to be separated from it. People in a purely reactive, dissociative rage do not typically engage in evidence disposal. Taken together, this is not a stranger's rage. This is not a random explosion. This is a man who had been sitting in a pressure chamber for months, possibly years, who drove into a private driveway, parked, and reached for a blade that had been waiting in the center console all along. Whether a court would have called it premeditated, we will never know. The court never got the chance. If this analysis hits differently than what you've seen elsewhere, subscribe. This is the angle nobody took, because nobody sat with the evidence long enough to see the pattern. You just did. Share this. The image of the arrest, 93 years old in a jumpsuit, is almost impossible to absorb. A 93-year-old man in a black and white county jail jumpsuit standing at a court lectern via video conference. The Tazewell County Circuit Court. Thursday, September 4, 2025. The afternoon docket. He was the last case called. His public defender, Luke Taylor, stood beside him explaining procedure. The state's attorney's office had filed a petition to deny pretrial release, arguing that James Pate, at 93, with fresh blood on his hands, posed a threat to community safety. Which, and I say this with full awareness of the gallows humor implicit in it, is technically accurate. He did pose a threat, specifically to the safety of any woman who happened to be in a car with him and a knife. Taylor waived the right to contest probable cause. He acknowledged they would need time to review the evidence before mounting a challenge. The court set a detention hearing and a subsequent date of October 2, 2025 at 9:30 a.m. to revisit pretrial detention. The maximum prison term, 60 years behind bars. 60 years for a 93-year-old man. To be clear, that is not a rhetorical absurdity. That is the Illinois sentencing structure applied to Class M felonies. The law does not grandfather elderly defendants out of maximum sentencing exposure, nor should it. Equal justice under law applies regardless of age. But the practical mathematics are what they are. James Pate, convicted and sentenced to 60 years, would have needed to survive to approximately 153 years old to complete his sentence. For context, the oldest verified human being in recorded history died at 122. James was not going to prison for 60 years. James was going to die in custody or before custody concluded. Everyone in that courtroom knew it. The prosecutors filing the charges knew it. The judge knew it. His public defender knew it. And somewhere in a hospital in Peoria, Cheryl Pate's family knew it too. What they may not have anticipated was just how quickly that trajectory would unfold, and what would cause it. James Pate entered the Tazewell County Jail on September 2, 2025. He was 93 years old. The facility at that time held approximately 120 inmates. Within approximately a month of his incarceration, his health began to deteriorate. The specific clinical details of his initial symptoms are not fully documented in public records, but the trajectory was clear. Respiratory decline, pneumonia, and complications that rendered him unlikely to recover. He was transported to Carle Health Pekin Hospital. Doctors concluded he was unlikely to survive. Under standard legal protocol, he was furloughed into hospice care, released, technically, from the physical confines of the jail, to die in a medical setting rather than a detention facility. He died on October 6, 2025. Tazewell County Coroner Charles Hanley officially listed his age at death as 94, a discrepancy of 1 year from his jail booking record, suggesting he may have had a birthday between his arrest and his death, or that there was a documentation inconsistency in his original records. He had been incarcerated for 34 days. The murder charges were not resolved. There was no trial. There was no verdict. Under Illinois law, the death of a criminal defendant prior to conviction and sentencing results in automatic abatement of the charges. The case is dismissed as a matter of legal necessity. The record does not say guilty. It says case closed. And then, weeks after his death, something unexpected happened that transformed this story from a local true crime incident into a public health controversy. Don't close this video, because what comes next is the part that nobody is talking about, and it involves a bacteria, a plumbing system, and a question about whether the American criminal justice system itself became complicit in denying Cheryl's family their justice. Stay with me. Legionnaires' disease at the Tazewell County Jail is a case of death inside the death house. When James Pate died at Carle Health Pekin Hospital on October 6th, his death was not immediately remarkable beyond the obvious irony of the timeline. A man who had killed his wife died in custody before trial. The criminal justice system's machinery had ground to a halt, as it does when defendants die, and the file was prepared for closure. But then, through standard post-treatment hospital laboratory processes, something appeared in the diagnostic data that changed the story's final chapter. Legionella pneumophila, the bacterium that causes Legionnaire's disease, a severe, potentially fatal form of pneumonia, and a pathogen that does not simply appear in elderly men's lungs randomly. It has a source. The Illinois Department of Public Health was notified. Testing was conducted on the Tazewell County Jail's water supply. The preliminary results: the external city water supply tested negative, clean. But the internal water system, the pipes running through the walls and floors of the facility itself, particularly the pipes in sections of the building that were underused, where water had been sitting stagnant, warming to temperatures that create ideal bacterial growth conditions, tested positive for Legionella. The bacteria originated from unused pipes inside the building, not from the city's water supply. Let that land. The Tazewell County Jail had, inside its own plumbing infrastructure, a microbial environment capable of killing people. And a 93-year-old man, elderly, immunocompromised, already biologically vulnerable in ways that aging makes inevitable, was placed into that environment. He breathed in aerosolized water droplets from showers or faucets carrying Legionella bacteria. His lungs, which could not fight back the way a younger person's might, succumbed to the infection. He died. And the case, the murder case, the first-degree murder case that Cheryl Pate's children and grandchildren had been waiting to see proceed through the court system, died with him. Thereafter, Sheriff Jeff gave an institutional response. Sheriff Jeff Lower's public response to the Legionella discovery was, by the standards of government agencies, managing potential liability exposure, remarkably transparent. He issued a media release late Friday night, October 10th. He disclosed the positive internal test results. He identified the source as unused pipes. He immediately implemented emergency protocols. N95 masks, issued to all staff and inmates to prevent inhalation of aerosolized water. Showers and faucets, shut down, identified as the primary aerosolization risk. Bottled water, distributed to all inmates and staff. Portable toilet units, brought in as hygienic alternatives. Outside contractor, engaged specializing in Legionella water system mitigation. Inmate release, coordination with state's attorney to release eligible non-violent misdemeanor offenders to reduce population density. Ongoing testing, biweekly Legionella testing committed for up to 1 year. By November 5, 2025, approximately 26 days after the positive test results, the Tazewell County Jail returned to normal operations. The system was flushed, treated, and filtered. No other inmate or staff member contracted Legionnaire's disease. The institutional response was swift. The transparency was commendable. The public health outcome was contained. But there is a question embedded in this story that no media outlet has pursued with any seriousness. Was there institutional negligence in the maintenance of the Tazewell County Jail's water system? And did that negligence contribute to the death of James Pate in a manner that denied Cheryl's family their day in court? Let us be precise about what this question is and is not asking. It is not asking whether James Pate deserved to die from Legionella rather than face trial. It is not asking whether his death should provoke sympathy. It is asking whether a government facility, responsible for maintaining safe conditions for people in its custody, including, notably, people who have not yet been convicted of anything, allowed its water infrastructure to become bacterially compromised. Under Illinois law and constitutional standards, pretrial detainees, people who have been charged but not convicted, retain specific constitutional protections regarding conditions of confinement. The 14th Amendment's Due Process Clause, as interpreted by the Supreme Court in Kingsley v. Hendrickson and Bell v. Wolfish, establishes that pretrial detainees cannot be subjected to conditions that amount to punishment. A facility whose internal pipes harbor lethal bacteria is, at minimum, a facility that has failed to maintain basic infrastructure safety standards. Whether that failure rises to the level of constitutional violation, in the context of James Pate specifically, is a legal question that no attorney has publicly pursued, because James Pate has no living advocate. Cheryl Pate's family, meanwhile, has no legal mechanism to pursue accountability for the loss of their trial. James's death abated the charges. The case is closed. The pipes have been treated. The file is filed. And Cheryl's family woke up the morning after October 6, 2025, knowing that the man who killed their mother and grandmother was dead, and that no courtroom would ever speak her name in a verdict. If you're watching this and you've lost someone to violence and the system failed you afterward, I see you. Drop a comment. This community doesn't just watch crime. We sit with the people it leaves behind. Let's consider the psychology of what happened and why it's not unique. I've been building toward this section since the cold open, because the most important thing about this case is not the ages of the people involved. The most important thing about this case is that it is a textbook execution of a forensically documented pattern. Not a unique occurrence, not a bizarre anomaly, a pattern. The pattern has a name: separation assault. The term was coined by law professor Martha Mahoney in a landmark 1991 Yale Law Journal article, and it describes the phenomenon, now extensively documented in epidemiological and forensic literature, of male intimate partners escalating to lethal violence at the moment their female partners attempt to leave the relationship. Women who separated from their abusive partners after cohabitation experienced increased risk of femicide, particularly when the abuser was highly controlling. The research from the Center for Relationship Abuse Awareness puts the number starkly. 75% of homicides related to domestic violence occur after separation begins. In the context of the Pate case, Cheryl had not merely expressed a desire to separate. She had moved beyond desire into action. The house was sold. The divorce paperwork was in preparation. She was, in the documented forensic framework of separation assault, in the highest risk category possible. The Wilson and Dolly analysis, cited in the Oxford Academic Review of Intimate Partner Homicide and Lethality Assessment, specifically found that the combination of physical and legal separation posed the most risk. Not one or the other, both simultaneously, which is precisely what was happening. Cheryl and James had physically vacated their shared residence, sale completed 11 days prior, and were in the process of legal separation, divorce preparation. Both conditions present simultaneously on September 2, 2025. The research framework would have assessed this as an extremely high-risk situation. I want you to note the age variable that nobody discusses. There is an element of this case that the media coverage consistently treats as a curiosity: the ages of the people involved, when it is, in fact, analytically critical. James Pate was approximately 13 years older than Cheryl. He was 93, she was 80. The age gap, combined with the likely trajectory of aging, means that Cheryl had retained more vitality, more social engagement, and more practical independence than James. This is not speculation. Her obituary documents it explicitly. She had a packed social calendar. She was volunteering. She was making jewelry. She had an active iPad notification life. James's life in the public record is essentially absent. We know almost nothing about how he spent his time, what his social world looked like, who he was beyond this case. The asymmetry is stark. Gerontological research documents a well-established phenomenon in age-disparate couples, where the older partner loses independence and social functioning, while the younger partner retains them. A power inversion occurs. The younger partner may begin to feel like a caregiver rather than a spouse. The older partner may experience this shift as a form of diminishment, the loss of the dominant or equal role they previously occupied. For James, at 93, the prospect of Cheryl leaving was not merely a romantic or legal loss. It was an existential one. She was, in all likelihood, part of the practical infrastructure of his life, his transportation, his social connection, his daily functioning. The loss of Cheryl for James was not just the end of a marriage. It may have felt like the end of his ability to exist. That does not excuse what he did. Nothing excuses what he did. But if we want to understand, not forgive, understand the psychological architecture of September 2, 2025, we cannot ignore the existential dimension of what James was facing. Here, I want to address something directly. When this story broke in September 2025, it generated unavoidably, predictably, and somewhat inevitably a wave of dark humor online. A 93-year-old in a mugshot. The 60-year sentence for a man who couldn't possibly live to serve it. The jail that couldn't hold him because its own pipes killed him first. The whole thing has the structure of an extremely bleak black comedy. But here is what I want you to hold. Every punchline in this story has Cheryl Pate's blood on it. She was 80 years old. She had 4 granddaughters. She directed floral shows and made jewelry and kept Christmas cookies in rotation for a community. She had 50-year friendships. She had a physician daughter and grandchildren who went to choir concerts and swim meets. She was murdered in a driveway on a Tuesday afternoon. Seriously, subscribe and like this video. Not because of the algorithm, though yes, the algorithm. Because Cheryl Pate's name should be in more search results. The more you engage with this video, the more people find it. And finding it means someone else understands this story the right way. Let's talk about the legal aftermath. Under Illinois law, specifically the principle of abatement ab initio, when a criminal defendant dies before the judgment of conviction becomes final, the criminal proceedings are abated as if they never occurred. The charges are dismissed. The indictment is voided. No record of guilt is established. James E. Pate will never, in the eyes of the law, be a convicted murderer. He will never be a found guilty murderer. The Tazewell County Circuit Court docket shows a case filed and a case closed. The word guilty does not appear. This is not a loophole. This is a foundational constitutional principle. A person cannot be convicted of a crime they did not live to defend themselves against. The 5th and 14th Amendments require due process. You cannot have due process for a dead person. For Cheryl's family, her children Dr. Tiffany Carras and Brandon Thies, her grandchildren Olivia, Marin, Madeline, Audrey, Alex, and Andrew. This means there is no official finding. No formal public moment where the legal system said the words, "He did this and it was wrong, and here is the accounting for it." That absence is its own wound. This is one of the more genuinely remarkable silences in this entire case. James E. Pate died on October 6, 2025 at Carle Health Pekin Hospital in Pekin, Illinois. No public obituary has been filed or published. No memorial service was publicly announced. No funeral home has publicly confirmed arrangements for his remains. The contrast with Cheryl's obituary, a detailed, loving, community-facing tribute published through Dignity Memorial, with a visitation at Preston Hanley Funeral Homes and Crematory, and a reception at Pekin Country Club, is absolute. Cheryl was buried in the communal memory of a city that knew and loved her. James was publicly erased. Cheryl's obituary refers to him only as her husband Jim, listed among those who survive her, an extraordinary last act of biographical dignity extended to a man who had just killed her, written by children who had every reason to erase him from the record entirely. James's survivors, if any, are not named in any public document. His body's final disposition, burial, cremation, interment, is unknown from public records. He died, the pipes killed him, the paperwork closed, and the city moved on. In a different kind of story, that might feel like justice. In this one, It feels like the final silence in a story that deserved to be heard more loudly. As of November 5, 2025, the facility returned to normal operations. No additional Legionella cases have been publicly reported. The crisis, institutionally, is over. This case has not, as of early 2026, become a catalyst for policy reform or public health advocacy around elder intimate partner violence. It should. The rate of divorce among adults over 65 has tripled since 1990. The forensic research on separation assault is clear. The intersection of those two trends, more late-life separations and the established lethal risk of separation, demands policy attention that it is not currently receiving. Cheryl's legacy. Memorial contributions were directed to the Pekin Hospital League, 600 South 13th Street, Pekin, IL 61554. The organization she served, where she directed floral arrangements, where she was a volunteer pillar, is where her family asked that she be remembered. If you know someone who is in the process of leaving a relationship, especially a long-term one, especially one that has had any history of control, please share this video with them. Not for the views, because the research is clear that the separation moment is the most dangerous moment, and knowing that could save a life. I want to end this story not with the institutional aftermath, not with the legal closing of files. I want to end it with what this case teaches us. 5 things that will make you a more informed, more alert, and more capable person the moment you finish watching this video. Lesson 1. Intimate partner violence has no retirement age. We have a cultural blind spot around elder intimate partner violence. We don't see it because our mental model of domestic abuse is youthful. We imagine a young couple, a cramped apartment, raised voices through thin walls. Elder intimate partner violence is underreported, understudied, under-resourced, and underacknowledged. But it is real, it is documented, and it kills. If you work in healthcare, law enforcement, social work, or family services, and you have elderly clients in relationships, this case should recalibrate your vigilance. Lesson 2. The separation is the flashpoint. Research from the Center for Relationship Abuse Awareness is unambiguous. 75% of intimate partner homicides occur after separation begins, not during the relationship, after the decision to leave. If you or someone you love is planning to leave a long-term relationship, especially one that has had any elements of control, isolation, or possessiveness, do not do it alone. Do not do it in a car. Do not do it without a safety plan. Contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-790-97233. They exist for exactly this moment. Lesson 3. Vehicles are closed systems, and that matters. A car is not a neutral space. A car, particularly when driven and parked by one partner, is a controlled environment in which the other partner has limited options for exit, for de-escalation, for intervention. If you feel unsafe in a vehicle with someone, get out, park, walk, find a public space. The discomfort of that decision is recoverable. The alternative may not be. Lesson 4. Understand how your criminal justice system actually works. James Pate was never convicted. The charges were abated by his death. This is not a failure of the system. It is the system operating exactly as constitutionally designed. But it is a reality that Cheryl's family had to absorb. If you are a victim or a victim's family member, understanding this reality before you emotionally invest in the outcome of a trial protects you from a particular kind of secondary trauma. The system can close a file. It cannot close a wound. Lesson 5. Our jails are not equipped for an aging population. The United States incarcerates a growing number of elderly adults. The infrastructure of county and local jails, designed for a young, institutionally average population, is not calibrated for immunocompromised octogenarians and nonagenarians. James Pate was 93 years old. He was placed in a facility with degraded internal water infrastructure. He contracted a fatal bacterial pneumonia. He died. Whatever your position on what James Pate deserved, the principle remains. Facilities responsible for human beings have a constitutional and moral obligation to maintain basic safety standards. Stagnant pipes harboring Legionella bacteria are a failure of that obligation. That failure denied Cheryl Pate's family a trial. It did not serve justice. It merely redistributed the injustice. That is worth demanding better from. There is a detail in Cheryl Pate's obituary that I keep coming back to. Her friends and family wrote that she was never without soup in her freezer for a sick or grieving friend. Think about that for a moment. That is not an incidental detail. That is a portrait of a woman whose orientation toward the world was, when people are suffering, I show up with something warm. She built that into the infrastructure of her life. She kept the soup ready. She didn't wait to be asked. She didn't need to be prompted. When her people hurt, she was already prepared. That is a kind of love that is not passive. It is active. It is a choice, made over and over again every time she restocked the freezer. It is the kind of love that does not require witnesses or credit. I've been sitting with this case for a long time. I've read the court documents. I've read the autopsy report. I've read the coroner's statement. I've read the sheriff's press releases about the jail's water pipes. And I keep coming back to the soup. Because Cheryl Pate was not primarily a victim. She was a woman who had built a world of children and grandchildren and 50-year friendships and Christmas cookies, and beach vacations and flower arrangements and jewelry and table settings that people still remember. She had built that world with her own hands and her own stubbornness and her own resilience. And she had decided that the last chapter of that world would be written on her own terms. She was brave. Her family said so. And brave means something specific in this context. She was in the process of the single most dangerous act a person can perform in an intimate partnership. She was leaving. She had done the paperwork. She had signed the sale. She was in the car doing the final administrative work of dismantling a shared life. And she did not survive the attempt. 75% of intimate partner homicides happen during or after separation. If you are in the process of leaving a relationship and you are afraid, please contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline before you take any steps to separate. They can help you build a safety plan. The research is clear that the separation moment carries specific, elevated risk. You deserve to navigate it with professional support. Cheryl Pate is in that statistic. But she is not only that statistic. She is Grandma Sherry. She is the woman with the soup. She is the woman who got lost everywhere she drove and laughed about it with the people she loved. She is the woman who showed up with flowers when the hospital league needed them and cookies when the holidays came and creative chaos when the grandchildren came for sleepovers. She was 80 years old and she was fully alive, and she deserved to stay that way. Cheryl N. Pate, née Liming. November 23, 1944 to September 2, 2025. Bartonville, Illinois to Pekin, Illinois. Remembered.